Good morning from Lake Michigan. Today I am doing what I do most days, but today is exceptionally cold. It's with the wind chill, it's supposed to be about 9 below. I do Wim Hof breathing every day, and I do cold immersion. I've been doing the cold immersion for a couple of years now, but I've been doing the Wim Hof breathing for a little over a year, and it's really been a game changer. And I'm just going to keep this super short because it's freezing cold and I don't want to have too much time of exposure even while I'm bundled up. I can feel it in my face. I can feel that it's hard to talk. I actually put hot hands in my gloves today, which I normally don't do, but it's the hardest part of this experience is not the being in the water, because the water temperature is much higher than the air temperature. It's after you get out and having to get dressed really quickly without freezing. That's the hardest thing. So that's why I brought some hot hands today, so that my hands could get warmed back up quickly. And that's the type of cold that's painful. Some might argue it's not the smartest time to do this. Hey guys, I'm currently editing this video and I just wanted to give a quick little disclaimer. Just for context, I'm a stand-up paddleboarder. I've been doing that for about 10 years in Lake Michigan. I usually go pretty far out in the lake, and I have a good amount of experience in paddling in all kinds of conditions, and I've been a swimmer for a long time, so I feel pretty confident in conditions that some people might not be as safe in. That said, there are plenty of people out there who might see this video and be like, what is she doing? You know, that's crazy. So I just wanted to put this out there. If you don't have experience with cold immersion, I would not recommend going into Lake Michigan when it's 40 degrees like I'm doing in this video. It's something that requires getting acclimated to. I've been doing it for a couple of years now, so I feel like I have a understanding of what conditions are safe for me and which ones are not. It's hard to tell with this video, but the waves are not coming very hard and fast, and they are kind of slushy. It's like they're sort of like slow, dopey waves or something, for lack of a better way to put it. I feel safe in these conditions. Today I stayed in for, maybe 4 or 5 minutes. And that is with these, I wear neoprene socks. These are not the thickest kind that some scuba divers might use, but so they don't keep your feet super warm, but they keep them less cold, and that's kind of what I'm going for. Not to mention when you're really cold and you're walking out and there's all these rocks, that beach is very rocky, especially this time of year. It can be really painful. So these protect my feet from those rocks, and they keep them from getting super cold to the point where they would get numb and painful, and where you can't really stay in for very long. Also, the little video that's going to play after this, you see me in there a similar time of year last year, or the year before. That video might be, it's kind of old. But I wasn't wearing a hat, and now I always wear a hat. So my goal is to stay in a little bit longer, and in order to do that, I need to protect my extremities. But all of that said, Lake Michigan is a notoriously dangerous lake. I say this to anybody I talk to about this. Lake Michigan has taken better swimmers than me. So I don't go in there lightly. I don't think of it as a no-risk situation ever. And if the conditions are such that I don't feel safe or I feel unsure, I don't go in. If you're someone who wants to try cold immersion in a body of water near you, don't go alone, and don't go in any kind of conditions where there's a little bit of chop or waves. Go in there thoughtfully, because it's not something you should assume is safe. And I don't want anybody to watch this and be like, I'm gonna try that, and then have something terrible happen. So be safe, be conscientious, and try things at your own risk. But start with cold immersion in your shower first, maybe before, or if you can, buy some bags of ice and try it in your bathtub at home, because that's definitely going to be safer than going into a body of water like Lake Michigan in January, when it's 5 to -9 degrees outside and 40 degrees in the water. That is something that requires a little bit more experience. So that's my disclaimer. But I feel that I have enough experience to do it safely. So the key is to do it quickly. But yeah, I will talk more about this when I'm not outside in 9 below weather. All right, so here you see me setting up for my Wim Hof breathing practice, which I do every morning. That's actually an extra large dog cushion folded over underneath my legs. I like to have my legs supported like that, and my lower back and my head and neck with those pillows. And the way I'm doing it here, by the way, I'm going to include a link underneath for Wim Hof's, from him personally, showing how to do this as a beginner. This is the way I've sort of evolved into doing it, and I'm not saying it's the exact right way. I should probably go back and refine it. But what I do here is take the 30 really deep in breaths. I'm trying as best I can to breathe all the way down from the bottom of my diaphragm up, and also while I'm going down to up, I really try to expand my rib cage outward side to side, which is something I've worked on in my yoga practice as well, expanding that breath. You see me having my hands over my face, not to protect my eyes from that bright morning sunlight, but to apply a little bit of pressure on the sinuses and open them up a little bit so that I can get a really deep breath through my nose. And I've noticed that that does make a huge difference for me. I don't know if that's just me, we're all a little anatomically different, but it does make a difference. I really try not to, you see my shoulders kind of elevating here, but I try not to let them do that too much. So I'm doing the 30 deep in breaths with gentle exhalations, trying to just let the air go as Wim Hof would describe. And then I do these deep hip stretches while I'm holding the breath out, which I do for usually 35-40 seconds, as long as I can. And then I will take as deep of a breath in as I can, hold that as long as I can, which is usually for another 45 to 60 seconds, I would say. And that seems to vary. I've noticed on days when I wake up with a little more anxiety or feeling a little more stressed, I have a harder time holding my breath. And as I go through these exercises, I feel more and more open. I notice my sinuses are more open. It's very dry right now because it's winter, and my sinuses will feel more congested in the morning. And this totally helps open all of that up. Of course, it helps to open up my hips doing these stretches. I will hold that in breath as long as I can, and usually at the very end when I'm almost about to run out, I try to take a little, what I think of as a cheater breath, an extra little sip in, and hold it a little bit longer. And then once you release that in breath that you've been holding, you feel an amazing sense of relaxation. So I'll usually lie there for another good 30 seconds or a minute while I bask in the feeling of euphoric relaxation that you get from these amazing breaths. And then I'll do 3 more rounds. So I pretty much always do about 4 rounds of the Wim Hof breathing before I head out to the lake. And when I'm at the lake, if it's not 9 below, I will sit and do some Kundalini movement and breathing exercises, which get me nice and warmed up before I plunge into that very cold water. This video is kind of a mishmash of different filming, but I just wanted to go back and explain a little bit about the Wim Hof method, and I wanted to acknowledge that I probably should have gone back and reviewed more on how to execute the Wim Hof breathing method correctly, because the way I've sort of gotten in the habit of doing it is not exactly right. So I don't know that that is necessarily a negative for me, like I'm not getting a lot of the same benefit, but I do think that it's necessary to go back and refine it, like I mentioned earlier in the video. So I'm going to do that. I consider myself a somewhat skeptical person. I think it's really important to not assume that claims are accurate on things, but I watched enough videos and read enough about Wim Hof and the method that made me think this is worth looking into and trying. And I started doing it, and just doing it one time was enough evidence for me that this makes me feel a lot better. One of the primary tenets of doing it the way he prescribes it is deep breaths in and then breaths out without force. That's actually really challenging when you're getting into a rhythm of breathing. I find, and I'm guessing I'm not alone, it's actually difficult not to expel the breath out because you're in this rhythm. So it's more about letting go of the breath. That to me takes practice. And I think a lot of people do this sitting up. I feel more comfortable doing it lying down. But I just wanted to sort of share, this is my set of morning rituals that have really made a big difference in my life and have helped me sort of find ways outside of turning to something like a substance, just sort of like find ways to reset my mind and my body without going into this tendency that I've had in my life of like getting in what I call the swirling shitstorm of like worrying thoughts and like what's going on and am I depressed and all this other stuff. Instead of getting caught up in that, I have instead found this way of just saying, I don't have to even worry about it. I'm just hitting the reset button. I initially started doing the Wim Hof method as part of a set of different practices, yoga and juicing and meditation, things that I was doing to try to improve my mental health, improve my physical health. And I had talked in my previous video about how I had a rather pesky weed habit. And one of the things that I tended to do was use the most at night right before going to sleep, which really interfered with my sleep. And I would wake up in the morning feeling anxiety and feeling really down and feeling a sense of dread and just all these negative sort of emotions. So I knew I was engaged in this habit and I wasn't necessarily ready to make the change that I wanted to make, but I thought this is kind of how I've approached unwanted behaviors before, like thinking about adding something positive in that starts to crowd out the negative thing. And I've found that to be very helpful. So that's partly why I started doing the Wim Hof breathing. That's part of how I continued to do it after trying it, because I noticed that it was like hitting a reset button on my mood in the morning. And it was like sort of a really good way of waking myself up without even having had any caffeine. I felt more awake and alert because it's like you're filling your cells with oxygen, and it's a really awesome way to get your day started. And I had already started doing the cold immersion, and part of what made me want to do that is I love being in the water at any time. I love being in the lake, and I felt this sort of pull to go in there when it was cold. I was like, I know it's going to make me feel awesome. I've taken cold showers before, and you feel this almost euphoric feeling afterwards. So I was like, let me just try it. And I started doing it and found it to be difficult, uncomfortable, but over time, like I just wanted to keep doing it because it made me feel so good. And I also am a person who deals with chronic pain. So I know that cold therapy is helpful for chronic pain. So that's partly why I have been in the habit of doing that. And that, I guess, sort of led me into learning a little bit more about Wim Hof and the method and wanting to take it to that next step of let me move beyond just going in the water. Let me try adding in the breathing. The Wim Hof method has so many benefits. It's known to be really good for strengthening your immune system. It's good for your cardiovascular system. It's good for your nervous system. And in my experience, it's been really great as a sort of mental reset button in the morning. I can't say enough good about how it's made a difference for me, and it's been part of a set of practices that's helped me improve my mental and physical health, and I feel a lot more centered and settled and calm than I used to by far. And I come to you as a person who has extended periods of my life where I was eating fast food, drinking soda all the time, smoking cigarettes heavily at periods of time, having problems with alcohol, having problems with marijuana, you name it, a lot of unhelpful habits, binging on sugar, all of that. These practices have helped to crowd out the practices that are undesirable and unhelpful in my life. So I could go on and on, as I tend to do, but I just will leave you with that. Know that it might feel difficult and uncomfortable at first because deep breathing is an exercise. And a lot of us, especially those of us who spend long periods of time sitting, if you sit at a computer for your job, if you sit in a truck, anything that you do, you are going to tend to have a lot of the muscles that are responsible for breathing are going to be tighter. The muscles through the front of the neck, the muscles that attach to the collarbone, the muscles in between the ribs, all of those muscles, and even the abdominal muscles, the hip muscles can become very tight. So it can be hard for them to open up initially when they're not used to it. So be patient with yourself. If you try to do this and it feels like, I can't do this, don't get down on yourself about it. Try to let go of that and just recognize it's new, and it's okay if it feels uncomfortable when you're doing it for the first time. Totally cool. Just give it a try, keep trying, and see how much better you feel. You might be amazed. So thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you learned something beneficial from it. Please like and subscribe. I will try to keep including content that is hopefully helpful to people and give them some pointers on how to work on their health, because we are all here to help each other, and there are simple, free things that you can do to make your life better. That's what it's all about. So thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you on the next one.